was February 28th of 1941. My mother got a call saying they let this Egyptian ship is neutral. There were a lot of missionaries going. It was the first ship that people could go to Africa on. And if she could get ready into New York City in 10 days, pack up the house, get all the kids there, we could get on the ship. And she said, well, she'd think of overnight. And she called back and said, well, she'd try that, but they'd have to get a visa. So she, the next day, had a meeting in a county seat. It was Saturday with a women's group. She went down there to the meeting. She snuck away at noon, went to the county clerk's office, but they were closed at noon. So she looked them up, got them to come down, open up the office, and do the paperwork for the visa. And she sent it in. And, then about 5 days later, she got notice that they just couldn't get the visa in time. It was too late. So then the next day, she got another telephone call that said that the ship had been delayed a week. And she said, go ahead and try it. We'll try to make it. And this was up to Friday. Before that, the ship was sailing on, I think it was 16th, and she figured she had to leave Kansas about it was 3 days earlier to get New York on the train to get down there, which was a Sunday she had to leave. On Friday, she still hadn't heard. I was 11 years old, and I was 10, but just about 11. My sister was 8. She had my sister stay home with the 3 little kids. While she went to Slan, a neighboring town, to shop and buy some supplies for Africa. She still hadn't heard. And when she came home, we told her that the Western Union stopped there with a telegram saying a visa could be obtained. And I said, well, I was really happy because I'm a terrible speller. But at school that day, of course, I was thinking of other things. We didn't tell the people in Lynchburg that we might be leaving that fast. And I'd missed, I think it was 19 words out of 20-some. And you're supposed to write each word 100 times. But I said, well, good, I'll get out of that because we're going to leave. And so my mother then talked to some neighbors, to some friends, and her brother came up and helped pack the house. And they spent all day Saturday and Saturday night. And we got on the ship. We left for New York. We got to New York, and then there was about 2 days delay. The ship wasn't ready to go. And then we got on the ship. And the ship had about 180 Americans. About 140 were missionaries from, there were 19 different denominations around the ship. And so it was a very unusual ship. And so we left New York, went down to Trinidad, to South America. Just before we got to South America, the ship started going under blackout. And a lot of the missionaries and some of the others really got upset. They talked about to the captain. It was Captain Smith. He was a British captain, but all the rest of the ship was mostly Egyptians and a couple other nationalities. He said, well, it was actually the British Admiralty declared that we should go under blackout. And people said, well, we're supposed to be neutral. So we went on blackout. We left, went down to South America, sailed out. And we were out about 4 or 5 days under blackout, and we had, there was a big thunderstorm. And my mother, we had a cabin on the deck. My mother stepped out, she stepped in the water, and she thought it was water from the sea. And she got in, got us all, told us to put our life belts on, our life jackets, really. And it was kind of a dry run. The next day people said, well, did you hear about the Danielsons? They did this. But actually it turned out very well because she found out 2 or 3 of the life jackets had holes in them, so she mended them, and there was only 6, and we were 7 of us. And she went to the purser and said, well, we need another one because we have the... And he said, well, the little one is only 1.5 years. She says, she's too little, she'd drown anyway. My mother said, no, we'll get a life jacket for her. So she got these life jackets. She made a couple of them a lot smaller, fastened them up. And actually it happened, it was lucky that my younger brother, who was about 2 years old, 2.5, and that morning put that life jacket on the smallest one, which was tight on him, and my mother actually held the sister. But we were on the ship, we heard the shells coming in. It was a German raider, it was a cargo ship that there was pictures here of it. A cargo ship that had been equipped by the Germans, and they did, I think, about 20 ships in the Indian and South Atlantic. But they would change their mask. They would sometimes walk on the deck with Japanese parasol. I mean, they were just really good in disguise. But they had two 6-inch cannons, and they shot 55 shells at the Zamzam. And of the 55, 11 hit. And the second one tore out the wireless, which they said was really fortunate because if they'd sent an SOS out, then the raider would have to take off right away. And we could hear we were on the side the shells were hitting, and we could hear the shells coming in, and then it hit. And I thought each one hit next to us because the whole ship would shudder. In our room, the sink came off, the wall, the mirrors came off the wall, everything fell on the floor, and we just wait. And then after about 10 minutes, the purser came by and said, well, it's okay to go out now. So we went out, and people were unloading the lifeboats, and we got in one. My mother got in the lifeboat, and she remembered she didn't have her passport. And she started to go back, and then kids were all told her, don't go back. She said, well, maybe where we're going, I'll never need a passport again. So we got on this, on the lifeboat, and on the way down, one of the beams went off and hit my mother in the head, but luckily she got a bruise from it, but that was it. But in the lifeboat, we got out and started away from the ship about 30 yards, and water started coming in through the bottom of the lifeboat. It had been on the same side as the shelling, so it was full of shrapnel holes. And the lifeboat started to go down, and my mother told us, well, use my son's helmet and help scoop water out, but didn't help anything. We went down, and we were all in the water in the area there, and my mother was holding the youngest one. I helped. My sister was under an Egyptian, and I kind of pushed him away. And so we all got together in kind of the same area by the lifeboat, and I kind of hung on it. It was a wooden lifeboat, so it came back up the other side, and people could hang on. And the Germans were really surprised. They thought this was it had been a troop ship. They didn't know the Egyptians had bought the ship. So when they saw instead of troops on it, all these women and children, the raider came over, sent rafts out, or motorboats out to us, and picked us up and had us go up the ladder to the. There was a rope ladder that we had to go up, and it was kind of scary. But I went up there. The youngest ones, they had a basket. They'd put the little kids in a basket, and they'd hoist them up. And on top, the Germans asked my mother about, well, are they all here? And she said, no, there's 2 more coming up. And the Germans' expression was, my God, we shot 55 shells, and nobody was killed.